G'day golfers. Ever found yourself redirecting blame and making excuses after having an absolute shocker on a golf course? I know that I have. Range was closed, I was a little cold, didn't warm up, I hit it in those 3 old divots. Then we have the podcast for you. We focus on how to fundamentally own your swing. Strike it pure and consistently shoot in the 70s. Be it if you're a weekend hack, retired and playing daily, a school phenom or a tour professional. We present and discuss facts and physics pertaining to golf, trying to keep our ego and opinion at bay. We dispel myths such as keep your head down, bend your knees, or my all-time favourite, game improvement irons. So stop drinking that mythical Kool-Aid and have a sip of ours. I think you'll find it both inspiring and refreshing. I'm Scott Young, founder of Swing, PGA professional and ex-tour player. Welcome to Pivot the Path. G'day golfers and welcome to Pivot the Path. We hope this finds you well and having a fantastic weekend. I had the first weekend with my brother in town all the way from old Sydney town for the first time in New York City, about 12, 13 years. And first time he's come into Swing to see the vision here. So we're super pumped and proud. And Bretto spent about half a day with us on Friday just getting to know the members and how the members come in. We have a bit of a chat. They go do warmed up. Hopefully most of them go do their warm-ups. And then they really work on their math, face to path, face less than path type of stuff. So that was cool. Our improvement pivot point comes from playing with one of our members and a dear friend of mine up at a track up in Connecticut. And we actually, so in here he rips it. He plays off about, 4 or 5 handicap, kind of how he hits the ball. And then a couple of little things slip on the golf course and this poor chap really stopped enjoying his golf. And he said, mate, Youngie, I rip it at swing. I come inside 5-4, hit a fade, hit a draw, chip it beautifully. Except when I go to the golf course, it kind of just doesn't click and I'm really not enjoying my golf. So we straightened him out in about 10 minutes just from looking at a couple of process. We're going to get into that in our improvement pivot point. I think it's really important that you take indoor practice in a controlled environment. One could argue that the upside of swing are T-squares and alignment rods. The frustration occurs when you don't work really hard on that alignment and you take it for granted. And I think many golfers, numerous golfers, in fact, I would argue most golfers, have poor alignment on the golf course and ball position. And so we do a great job of explaining it in here, but potentially I can do a better job also of saying, hey guys, you got to make sure you got to go to the golf course and really make sure you work on this alignment. So that's our improvement pivot point. We'll get back to that in a sec. So the improvement pivot point is really taking consistency of short game ball position and alignment to the golf course. Really important. More on that a little later. And news from the fairways. We had a little bit of a different news from the fairways. I actually had British by the Sea yesterday, which was really cool. So we've got an old Land Rover and we had a British car invasion just north of us in Connecticut where we had probably about 700 Lotus, McLaren, MG. We saw one of my dad had an MG TC from about 55. We saw several of those. We had Jags. Anyway, it was awesome. So we had British by the Sea, and it was absolutely superb. We talked all things Land Rover with fellow nutter Land Rover owners. What that little handle does, why did you use that little hinge? And I got some good ideas. So that was cool. Brother joined us, and Dave Ambrose, shout out Dave. And then we had F1, speaking of McLaren, went 1 and 2 again, and Oscar Piastri, dude just keeps winning. But I think Oscar's such a normal guy. He's not aggressive like Max. And so he kind of flies under the radar, but he keeps winning. McLaren won 2, so that was pretty cool. Korn Ferry, Trace Crowe smashed his first Korn Ferry win with 21 under. That was great. And that parlayed with DP having a first-time winner as well. Nicolai I'm going to read this here, Dellingshausen. Nicolai and Trace first had their wins. So first Korn Ferry win for Trace, first DP win for Nicolai. And again, I say it each week, golf's in a healthy position when these first-time winners keep winning. So I think that is just tremendous. LPGA had their US Open. This was out at Erin Hills, which is just such a magnificent golf course out in Wisconsin. So if you haven't played it, go play that and Whistling. And it's a bit of a hike, but it's a fantastic place to go play golf. stay at the Americas Club at Whistling Straits is probably one of the best experiences you'll find. And Maja Stark, 7 under. I love when low scores win. 7 under won the LPGA US Open, which was terrific. And I think she'd won about $2 million in her total prize pool, the young Swede. Yeah, she won $2.4 million over the week, which was great. She's won more in 4 days than she has her entire career. So well done, young Swede. That's terrific. Which leads us to the Memorial. Scottie Scheffler keeps on winning. So he's gone back-to-back US Tour events. He's gone back-to-back Memorial events. And I just wanted to touch base on Ben Griffin as well, who I've played with. And Ben's a very consistent man, very consistent golfer. I don't profess to know him at all, but we played a couple of holes and it was nice to kind of get to know his feel. And it was interesting this week. So again, Scottie Scheffler, just a mental machine. Notice he's playing with his whoop, so I'd love to get my hands on that data to see how his heart rate finishes. To me, it was a good event, but it was what it was. But Scottie, I'm really enjoying watching him play golf. So he's 3 ahead. He's got a side hill left to right on the 72nd hole, so his last hole, for par. And the crowd whooped and he kind of was about to putt. He's got a 3-shot lead, so he can basically 3-whack from 9 feet, except he stops, takes a walk back, gives the guy a bit of a dirty look, and then resets in the moment and then holds that 9-footer slider to win. And it wasn't the fact that he holed that putt to win the event. It was the fact that he is so caught up in presenting the best of what he does. There's a ton of PGA Tour guys who would have hit that, 2-putted, had the win, and embraced that win and celebration, which is totally fair enough. So here's where Scottie Scheffler separates himself from as an elite PGA Tour player. I'm trying to work on this myself, but he's got a little slider 9-footer to win. Someone heckles or what have you, or gives him a shout out. He steps away, switches off. And again, we've seen him play for 4 days with no emotion. Like he's just emotionless on the golf course. Resets, goes back into his pre-shot routine, drains a really difficult little left to righter in front of 30,000 people, wins the event. And I thought, wow, not since the days of Tiger, get back to Rory and all the little missed putts that Rory's had over the last couple of years, not since Tiger Woods have we seen a golfer so invoked in his pre-shot routine that you can't help but think he's going to win all the majors this year. That's my kind of gut feeling. That 9-footer, and compare that to Rory's missed putts of the last year, that 9-footer was such a deafening moment to me because it says he's playing every shot irrespective of position on its merit. He's in front of 40,000 people, doesn't care. It's like the position of the event irrelevant. He is just chasing mental perfection. So again, I'd love to get that whoop numbers and see what his heart rate is doing on that 72nd hole. My gut feeling is his heart rate's doing nothing. And for those pundits who have bagged him and said he's not emotional, as soon as he drained that putt, it literally, it's like he flicks a switch and he's just a normal human guy and he's laughing and joking. He's hugging his caddy, had a bit of a tear when Amanda asked about his wife and her importance. And I know the importance of Rosemary with our podcast, and I might be the face of this brand, but Rosie's the brains behind it. And so it was nice to see him shed a tear on camera. He just appears to have the ability to be completely unemotional when he's playing golf, and I think it's awesome. I mean, it's not the greatest thing to watch on TV. But I'm falling in love with this guy, knowing how brilliant he is emotionally. And so I think that's pretty cool. So shout out to Scottie Scheffler. I thought Ben Griffin had a fantastic and powerful moment. But Benny Griffin won last week's PGA Tour event, first-time winner, even though he won the foursomes. The back nine of his event on Sunday, he's gone par, bogey, bogey, par, eagle, birdie, and then double. And so I think being in that position where Scottie's pushing him or he's trying to chase Scottie, I think he just faltered a little bit. Even though he didn't win the Memorial, I think he's going to be a far better golfer in weeks to come. So I hope that Ben's waking up this week going, look, I faltered when the pressure was on, but I can learn from those mistakes. And it wouldn't surprise me if Ben just steps up his game. When I played with him and he was having maybe just a muck around, it wasn't anything brilliant compared to like a Cam Young who smashes it or a Jordan who's got an amazing short game, but he was just so consistent. And maybe last week's little bit of a falter on the back nine might give him a kick up the arse to work out where he needs to improve to really go on with it. So I'm actually really excited to see where Ben goes with his game. So good on you, mate. And then on the greens for us, I played with our member who I played some really lovely golf, had a fantastic time. Thanks, Jono, up at Connecticut Golf Club. And I didn't hit the ball brilliantly well, but chipped and putted like a freak and really working hard on my short game in here. And that's what we're going to do with our improvement pivot point. How can you ensure that your short game practice in a controlled environment? Obviously, we use synthetic grass, so the club doesn't dig as much as real grass. However, it does dig. But it's really important that you create the tone. And while I'm so hard on our members making sure they don't kick the T-squares away, is because I think they take for granted where the ball position is relative to their body. And when you go outside and don't have T-squares and alignment rods and data, it's really easy to fall into some poor habits. And so I was super proud of keeping around Parfield. I think we played about 12 holes in the bucketing rain, which I love. I love playing in the ranks. You know, no one else is out there. And we wanted to get into that for our improvement pivot point. So shall we? Let's dive in here. Okay, so the improvement pivot point. When we're chipping in here, and I'm kind of really proud of how we lay this. So I laid this grass, so this is resembling into the grain. You'll see how much the club grabs. This is my low bounce, the club's grabbing. And if I grab my high bounce, the club doesn't grab nearly as much because the club bounces. So I laid the grass with different grain. And where I wanted to touch on improvement pivot point today, if I'm playing, this is like Florida or anything with fantastic grain, or if I'm a tight lie or if I'm a chunky lie, I've got to take the grain, in this case of the synthetic grass, into play. And you can't see it as much as I can feel it. This lob wedge, because it's got 3 or 4 degrees of bounce, really digs. Now, what happens when you play golf? At swing, we've got T-squares. Quick recap, we've talked about this the last couple of days. Make sure I'm absolutely dead square to camera here. My sternum's where the club hits the ground, verbatim. Scott, Tiger, whomever. My sternum is where the club hits the ground. The club's on a declining angle, hits the ground at sternum, continues to work on a downward angle to left shoulder socket. So low points here. So the reason I've got the T-squares is to teach the brain where my sternum is relative to T-square and ball. And what happens when guys come up and chip, if I go forward here a little bit and I open my stance, they're going to chip this way and say, right, because this ball's off my back foot as my brain sees it, I'm good to go and hit ball first. But if I keep my heels where they are and I rotate parallel to target line, all of a sudden my sternum's 3 inches behind the ball and I am going to hit the ground first. And it can destroy your whole game of golf. And one of our members was really not enjoying his golf because when he took his club out of his bag, he'd open his stance and he'd be chipping this way and he'd be like, that's off my back foot. But if I lay a club down on target line, keep my heels on the ground and re-rotate back, my sternum's 4 inches behind that ball. So just because of his lack of detail of process, it started to get into his chipping. He started double hitting chips, which means he's standing over an 8-iron thinking, well, shit, if I miss the green, I'm not going to get up and down. So at swing, we create process. So in this particular instance, if you want to open your stance, fine, but get the sternum in the right position. So if I have a little chip, so Velcro on, switch on. If I have a little chip, wow, that's grainy. So I want to move that off my back ankle. If I want to open myself up, get the ball position relative to sternum, then open yourself up if you want to. Create. One look at landing position, replicate. There's a perfect, and you can see how much that club hits the grain, right? That's my high bounce. If I wanted that ball to come out with a little more spin and a little softer, create the feel. Wow, that's grainy. So adjust where I want the ball position. If I have my sternum ahead, I'm going to hit ball first. create. Wow, that grabs. Create. Replicate. Now, I know the ball's so far back, and that thing's going to nip right away. So remember, when you're playing golf, ensure that the ball is where you want it relative to sternum and low point, and you'll be good to go, right? Always make sure you know where the ball is when you're chipping and pitching relative to strike. Sternum's where the club hits the ground, and low point is left shoulder. Beauty golfers, look, thanks for listening. Remember, the newsletter drops on Friday. Share it with your mates. You can absolutely own your swing with the work you put into your game off the golf course. Cheers. We'll see you next week.